So let's not delay. Let's bring uh, very talented. Let me give you a short snap of the journey of this very talented young man, I will say. So he went to Duke. You know Duke, right? It's called it's called Stanford of East. I would say the ranking is pretty high. It's very difficult to get in. So he did his undergrad from there, and then where did he went after that? Working Morgan Stanley. So that's so it's like everybody's dream wants to go to Morgan Stanley. And then he worked there, and then what he become? Everybody wants to be engineer, programmer, doctor. He became like a VC, venture capitalist. Wow. And he came to Bay Area, and now he is dominating the Bay Area, I would say. So let's hear the story from him. Okay. And he's working for right now the Boyd Corporation right here in Pleasanton. He has done so many merger and acquisitions and investment strategy, and he is a vice president in his new company. And he has also worked in France before doing it's coupon.com. And so let's hear his story. So today is we are going to focus. So a lot of people, this we live in this startup capital of the world. Is San Francisco Bay Area. Everybody wants to get his startup IPO and become millionaire, billionaire. But it's very difficult. Only 5% or less than 5% people. I came for the same thing, but I failed. So let's ask Sunny. Let's welcome Sunny KANTHA. Uh, he lives in a Bay Area. So, Sunny, you are welcome in the Radio Nepali USA. You are on the air.
Welcome, Sunny.
Thank you both for having me. Appreciate it. And Jay, I appreciate the kind words. I think of myself far lower than where you're placing me, but I appreciate that.
No. You are like a hidden treasure among the Nepalese community. So okay, so Sunny, let's start with your little bit story. So how did you start? Like you're born in America, or how did you?
No. I was born in Birgunj, Nepal.
Oh, so you're born in Birgunj in okay. So when did you come to America?
1989. So I was 2.5 years old, and my dad was a Fulbright scholar. Jay, for those of you who don't know, Jay's known me probably since I was 5 years old.
Don't make me that old, All right, So Sunny, so you went to why did you, because you are so talented, you are like any other desi kid. You can go for technology, doctor. So why did you go in a finance or even venture capitalist?
Yes, that's a great question. Actually, I went to Duke to do biomedical engineering, and so I worked in labs when I was in high school in Missouri. So I grew up a student there at the University of Missouri. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to go be a scientist. I'm going to go be an engineer and, work on interesting research. But once I got to Duke, something you don't see a lot in Missouri is the business side of things. And I realized the power of capitalism far exceeds what I could do in a single laboratory, and switched over to economics, and the rest is history.
So, all right. So, could you talk a little bit about your transition from Duke to Morgan Stanley? Because that's a very difficult place to get the job, and it's very tough to survive there. How did you do there?
Yeah, so at Duke, a lot of people. So things have changed a lot in the last decade or so since I left. But when I was there, the top jobs that everyone wanted were in investment banking. So I did investment banking at Morgan Stanley, and consulting. So people want to go work at Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley or McKinsey or Bain. Those are by far the most popular jobs. And I think anyone that's aspiring to go into business wants to go to one of those jobs right after college. And the main reason is that the training is really high quality. You not only get formalized training, but you get exposure to some really awesome scenarios in business. I mean, when I was at Morgan Stanley, I got to work with and be in the room with C-level folks from Fortune 500 companies, working on M&A, working on IPOs, working on debt, various financings as well. So it's the exposure that you really go for. So I was at Morgan Stanley for 2 years. And then, like you said, I went into VC for about 4.5 years before joining the corporate side.
Awesome. So could you give us the formula how to get into the Morgan Stanley or Goldman Sachs or any of those big VC firms?
Yeah. So Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley are big investment banks. And I would say, the number one thing you've got to really, looks like my light's turned off. Give me 1 second.
Turning the office ceiling lights on.
Sorry about that. I have it set to turn off to save energy. So I think the number one thing is academic excellence. So going to a top institution and doing well there is the top thing you can do. And one thing I would tell you is being at a Morgan Stanley or Goldman Sachs or McKinsey or Bain. Let's say you're only there for 2 or 3 years. That's not half as important as the training you get and kind of the brand recognition for all of your other jobs. So I highly recommend it. I know a lot of people are kind of have an aversion to going to do investment banking because it is a bit of a meat grinder, right? I mean, you're working 90 to 100 hours a week for a couple of years. It's a hard job, but the credibility it gives you, I think, is well worth it.
So, Sunny, so far in your lifetime, how many business plan you have reviewed or maybe you have seen? Would you tell our listeners?
I've probably spoken to the CEOs of at least 4,000 companies.
4,000.
Yeah,
Wow.
at least, maybe more.
So so Pooja, do you have any startup idea? Money is here, money guru is here.
No,
Yeah, I wouldn't call myself that.
yeah. Saniji, you just said that you have talked to more than 400.
4,000
4,000
CEOs.
CEOs.
To,
But I'm always curious to know how does that decision-making process look like? I mean, like, what are the criteria that gets focused when the decision gets made, like who is going to get the fund?
Yeah, that's a great question, Pooja. So, look, it really depends on what stage of VC you're in. So let me frame it out for you because the criteria diverges quite a bit. So when you're investing at the seed stage, or let's say the Series A stage, because there's not a lot of revenue traction, you spend a lot of time assessing the team and at least some kernel of what the company is going to be doing, because you're kind of making a bet on the team, so on the CEO and the executive team, because you don't have a lot of other real hard evidence to base your decision-making process on. As you get to, let's say, Series B and later, you can really start to test the product market fit. So you know whether this company is starting to gain traction. You can start to talk to customers. It starts to show up in the financial results as well. And I would say, there are a lot of different paradigms to assess companies. And one thing I'll tell you is venture capital is very much an apprenticeship business. It's not like there's a set formula to invest in XYZ company. For example, you say, I've got 10 criteria that I think will make a great company, but then what happens is you go in the room with that management team and you find out, sure, you could meet all 10 of those criteria and still not do the investment because there's some trend that this company is playing in that you don't believe strongly in. So it's a good question to ask, but it's hard for me to answer because it's very open-ended and it's very situation specific. So I'd say earlier stage teams, later stage financial metrics, the size of the market, some assessment of product market fit. And I mean, there's a gut feel element here too. I mean, you kind of know, and after especially you speak to thousands of companies, you start to get that gut feel very quickly around whether something is going to be, you feel like something's going to create value or not.
Yeah. So being from Nepal, especially when first generation Nepalese when they come to US, it's just like having their own company or establishing their own company is kind of like a dream, right? So, and I haven't seen many Nepalese going that route, and I think it's mostly because of lack of knowledge and also because of lack of courage as well, I would say. So what do you suggest for the Nepalese who wants to step up and start something of their own?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So I'll tell you, there's another element at play here too. A lot of people who come, and it's exactly in line with your lack of courage. It's not necessarily these people don't have courage. It's that, you know, getting out of Nepal, making it to the US, that's a big hurdle in and of itself. And so you tend to be a little more risk averse. You want to find a career here that'll pay the bills, where you have some degree of professional advancement. And starting a company does not fit that bill for quite a while. I mean, you have friends who started companies 7, 8 years ago, and they're just now doing well. It can take a long time. So I'll tell you, it's about passion. So if you find a space, an idea, when I say space, I mean a white space or a pain point. Maybe let's say you are working at a enterprise software company, and you realize that customers are asking for something different than what you're offering, or there's some area of the market that you believe very strongly in. A lot of people would tend to be risk averse and stay in that same role. I would say, look, if you have the means, if you've got some money saved and you can afford to go out on your own for, you know, a year or two, with potentially not making a whole lot of money / any, at least until you raise money from a seed fund or a VC fund, I would go for it. I mean, I think that it's a culture too. I think a lot of South Asians, Nepalese people are in that boat too, where growing up, my dad, when I told him that I moved from pre-med to economics, he was really disappointed. And I think not until my first year out of college, when, you know, first year you make more than doctors do after 10 years of training, he said, okay, maybe you're right. So it's a culture of certain careers are the right careers to do. But as more Nepalis start companies and do well, I think it'll start to be a snowball effect.
All right. So look like, you know, looking at the Sunny's life, he has already lived two life. Because, you know, first life people come here, just they establish, pay the bills, buy the house, buy the Toyota Camry, and then move up to the van. But you have already moved up from like a job to already, you know, like you know, the venture side of the business. So are you very conservative person, or you a risk taker yourself, Sunny?
That's a great question, Jay. So it's, I mean, you know my background. I mean, when I was growing up, my dad was a student, right? So we were living on like $6,000 a year. So part of me is, in my head, I know I want to start a company, but at the same time, I don't want my family to go. I have a kid and another kid coming, my wife and I don't want to go through the same thing I did growing up. So I kind of just want to save a little money and then start it. So it's a weird dynamic, but I would say I definitely want to take risks.
Absolutely. So, who is your like a role model in a VC world? Who do you say? Okay, I like this idea, this guy, and really I will follow his path, and kind of inspires you. Who is that person in a VC world?
In the VC world, I would say, I mean, there are a few. I think Pramod Hawk, the head of Norwest Venture Partners,
Yes.
who's created just a tremendous amount of value, incredible role model. I would say Mike Moritz at Sequoia has had a tremendous track record. It's humbling when you see what these people have done, because it's a track record of decades of making the right call, which is hard to do. I mean, it's the pattern recognition I was talking about before, but also relationships. I think relationships are critical in the Valley, and you know, you've got to get in early. So that's, in terms of advice, like Pooja was saying, start to network, meet as many people as you can if you want to start a company, because these relationships are critical. And as much as I hate to say it, VC is a little bit of a herd mentality. A lot of times the companies that get funding are the ones that people have kind of heard of. And I'm not saying that's a good dynamic, and that actually disadvantages a lot of people that are coming from non-conventional backgrounds. So relationships is critical.
So, what do you think about like Masayoshi Son, who is a CEO of SoftBank? He went to UC Berkeley, and now he's the richest guy in Japan. Maybe he'll be richest guy in the world. Who knows? So, what do you like his like investing style?
Yeah, he is impressive. You know, he probably lost in the first tech bubble. He probably personally lost $80 billion, 60 or 80. I remember reading at some point. He lost that much. So, and now he's back, and he's doing incredibly well again. But he is a huge risk taker, and what I love about his style is he'll formulate ideas about certain companies or spaces and go all in, and I think that's the way to do it. To go big or go home, and that's the reason he's done so well.
So if just say Bill Gates and MBS give you $100 billion, would you go all the way in the Lyft and Uber and all these new IPOs? If you're in his shoes, what you would have done?
You mean invest after the IPO, or are you saying invest in the same companies?
Before the IPOs, like his venture, like a sprint went bust. I mean, and right now he's merger with T-Mobile, but like you see the WeWork, you see the even the Uber and other one, it's not that going that great. He has lost a bunch of money recently in the last 4 or 5 years, but now he's getting investment in a biotech. So is he now becoming a conservative, kind of less risky? What are your thoughts?
I don't think so. And I think some of his recent investments have actually done really well. So DoorDash right now is valued at above $50 billion, I believe. And I think they probably invested when the company was worth, a fraction of that. They're probably going to make, let's say, 5 billion plus on DoorDash.
Right.
I'm not as close, full disclaimer, I'm not as close to the VC world now as I used to be.
Right.
I would used to know all of these numbers and the pre and post valuations like the back of my hand. But nonetheless, SoftBank's actually had some really good investments recently, or good investment performance. So I don't think he's changing his style too much, but I think what's happening right now in the market, it's an incredibly frothy market because there are trillions of dollars sitting on the sidelines. It's actually a good time to start a company, assuming that this continues, because there's so much capital out there. But it also makes it much harder to be a good investor or a disciplined investor, because there's so much money that the valuations of just about every deal are getting driven up to insane levels.
That's amazing. You make me awake now. Now I feel that I need
You
to.
want to start a company.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So, a lot of listener maybe don't know how the VC makes money. Could you explain, like, very simple, sentences?
Yeah. So look, it's the simple model is you raise a fund. So let's say, Jay, you want to, you have a desire to start a VC fund, and you have a lot of wealthy friends. You would go, let's say, raise a first-time fund of a few $100 million, right? So VCs make money in two different ways. One is a management fee on that actual money, that pool of capital they raised. So that management fee is generally about 2 or 3%. So what that means is every year you would make 2% of that 300 million. So let's say $6 million is your management fee. That's what you use to pay your salaries. That's what you use to pay your office rents, your travel, etc. The real money comes from what's called carried interest, or carry. Basically, once you pay that 300 million back to your LPs, your limited partners, who are the folks that contributed to that fund, you would get 20% or 30% of any profit. So let's say your fund was super successful, and you invested in a bunch of unicorns that went public, and you got liquidity. That and it turned out to be a 5x fund. So that 300 would be 1.5, and you would pay back 300 to your investors, and then you'd have 1.2 to distribute on top of that. And if you took 20% of that, that would be 240 million. That's basically profit to you and your employees.
So, Pooja, why not let's take Sunny as advisor? We should open a VC fund in Nepal.
Yeah. There probably are VC funds in Nepal, right? I haven't checked recently.
Yeah, so the US is very mature and very systematic market. There is rules, there is culture, there is ecosystem. So why this VC system is not developed other parts of the country, like New York or Texas or?
It is. Yeah, it's grown quite a bit. So New York has a really booming VC ecosystem now. Boston always has. So Route 128 in Boston, a lot of that's been around biotech. New York's VC has grown quite a bit. A lot of the companies are media, but there's a media or ad tech, but there's a good diversity of companies more recently. And Austin has a growing scene as well. I think what it comes down to, and the reason you don't see more huge VC scenes, is that there are some really powerful network effects to being in the same location. And so you get, I think, I read a book, I don't know, a decade ago about these nodes of innovation. And what happens is somewhere like the Bay Area has so many different nodes of innovation where, you know, if you want to start a company, let's say in biotech, you're going to be able to talk to 20 or 30 entrepreneurs or experts in the field that are going to help you build that company. And what ends up happening is, because of these network effects and these nodes, the more valuable companies end up being built in these hubs. And so that's where the VCs want to be.
So I just wanted to ask, like, is there any, extra or additional support available if women wants to start a company?
You said if women want to start a company, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. The support for females is increasing by the day, and it's actually phenomenal because historically the percentage of companies that were female founded was very low. In fact, just pathetically low. And now you see a lot of VC funds actually that are devoted to over indexing to female entrepreneurs. I haven't searched for them, but I'm sure if you search, you'll find probably 10 that are more dedicated to females than males, to try to help them succeed.
So, Sunny, so right now, just say, what is a trend? What kind of sector there is a VCs are investing? It is AI, it is ML, it is a Bitcoin, it is a crypto. What's is a biotech? It is a coronavirus vaccine. What is the next?
Yeah, so like I said, I would have been a lot smarter about this 5 years ago when I were in VC. But I'll tell you some of a high level what I understand. Crypto, definitely. Crypto is one of those where it was very niche 5-7 years ago. And now people are realizing there's so many different applications. Who knows how it's going to, how and if it's going to be a cornerstone of our financial system? That's TBD, but I think people are realizing the proliferation of applications and the importance to society. So a lot of crypto funds are being raised. AI and AI/ML, I'd say, kind of grouped together, critical. I think it's been such a buzzword for so long that it comes down to specific applications. And so I think, I would be remiss to tell you I know exactly what some of those applications are right now, but very important. Biotech, of course. There's people are realizing too the ability to apply AI and ML to some of the traditional medical problems and challenges could unlock enormous value. So I think a lot of people are looking at that angle. And I think too, if you look at what happened with coronavirus, it kind of reawoken a big interest in e-commerce, because all of a sudden in the course of a few months, we experienced 10 years worth of acceleration in how consumers shop for a lot of things online. So there's I think there's still a lot of opportunity there.
That's a very good information. So, Sunny, so when you look at investing, look at different companies, would you look at their team or business model, or you look at their trend of the future, market size, that product, if there is nothing there? What is your key decision-making points that you say, okay, I'm going to fund this guy, maybe give 10 million, maybe that guy another 100 million. So how do you come up with those decision process?
Yeah, look, I mean, kind of back to what Pooja asked. It really depends on the stage that you're investing. So if you are writing $10 million checks, it means you're probably investing Series A or later. And at that point, the team, obviously, no matter what stage you're in, team is critical. I think the team is the most important element, because what ends up happening is the idea or the business plan you see when you invest ends up morphing one or several times. And if you have the right team in place, they're sharp enough to be able to act on all the changes in the marketplace and all the necessary changes to that business model, et cetera. So you want to make sure you're backing the right people. That's critical. That's the most important thing. You want to make sure there's a space big enough. So what we call TAM, or total addressable market. That's very important too. I mean, you don't want to start a company that can only, even if it scales and wins 100% market share, would only be 50 million revenue. You want a company that, VC is about making those big bets that a lot of them won't pay off, but the ones that do pay off, you want them to be home run successes. I mean, when I was at Norwest, some of the companies we invested in and exited while I was there, we made over 120 times the check that we wrote. So the $10 million check, 120 times that.
Wow, wow. So you work in New York, you work in Paris, now you're working in San Francisco Bay Area.
Oh, the Paris was just a company I bought there. I didn't actually end up living there.
Oh, okay. So how is the European culture versus like Silicon Valley culture, working?
It's awesome. No, the Europeans are obviously, I think they're more laid back in general, especially in France. There still have been some great successes in the European VC ecosystem. But I'll tell you, I almost uniformly have seen the level of intensity in Silicon Valley to be substantially higher.
Right. So where do you think he's saying that Austin is going to be next Silicon Valley? Do you believe that? Because most of the investor VCs are here. Even a company are moving maybe because of the operational cost, or maybe kind of save some money, or maybe go for tax holidays. Is that a trend? Is Silicon Valley moving to Texas? What do you say?
I mean, look, there are a lot of companies moving to Texas, but I don't think I think it's too early to say Silicon Valley is moving to Texas. I think you will have a lot of great success stories coming out of Austin, without a doubt, right? I think I think what coronavirus has actually also done is it's opened up the aperture of a lot of VCs to invest in non-core geographies, because a lot of the first meetings you're having aren't in person, they're over Zoom, right? You're meeting founders for the first time, not sitting in your Menlo Park office on Sand Hill Road or wherever you are, but on Zoom. And that means you can meet people anywhere, and you get exposed to ideas that are very interesting, even if they're, in the Midwest or wherever you are. I think that the lead that Silicon Valley has becomes so self-reinforcing that it's really hard to disintermediate.
So right now, just say for example, in your company, or right now, whatever you're working, what kind of job you do, like just to know about your expertise and like your interest.
You asked what I'm doing right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm at a company called Boyd Corporation right now. We were acquired by Goldman Sachs in 2018, and we are a leading industrial technology company. So we have two key elements to what we do. One half is thermal management. So we were actually the original guys that cooled your first Intel 386 chips. So thermal management, and I'm starting to get really excited about where we could take this as our company, is only going up. So every new computer that you get your hands on, or iPhone or whatever it is, has an increasingly more powerful processor, which most of the time, by its very nature, dissipates more heat. So we're going to see the need for thermal management only increase going forward. And this also applies in the data center, which is an area that we are hoping to accelerate our growth in quite a bit. The servers that you need to do when we were talking about AI and ML, these calculations are so complex that the power of the servers necessary to do them effectively and quickly is going to go up to a level where the only possible way to cool those servers is through liquid. And we're really innovating the way there because if you look at what Google's doing with 1,000-watt servers for their AI work, fast forward, let's say 3-4 years, maybe 5 or 6, every single server will have that power or more, and that just means that you've got to have liquid cooling. So that's one of our key growth drivers here at Boyd is thermal management. We've been a leader in that for a long time. So we have, just for background, so we have 32 design and manufacturing facilities around the world, 7,000 people. I'm on our executive team, and I run corporate development strategy for us. So my job here over the next 3 or 4 years is to acquire $2 billion worth of companies for us, to really help us be a leader, an industrial tech leader, and whether we get bought by another private equity firm or go public, too early to tell.
Do you own any Bitcoin? So, Sunny, the question is I have from one of the listeners. People are saying the Bitcoin will go 500,000, 100,000. It is a hoax, it is fake news, or it is a reality?
I could see Bitcoin going to 500,000 for sure. It's just a matter of time, of when, though. So I think the jump to 50, past 50, was faster than most people expected. But I think what we have to see is this new generation of folks on Robinhood and Coinbase and other exchanges don't operate with the same rules. I mean, you saw what happened with GameStop, right? I mean, people can get into these herd mentalities and hike up asset prices to never before seen levels in a shorter period of time. I think that Bitcoin, by its inherent scarcity, over some period of time, I don't want to prognosticate what that period of time is, will go to 500,000.
Wow. Let's think how we can buy Bitcoin.
But look, keep in mind though, you might lose. Let's say I haven't checked where it is today or the last 5 days, but you might lose, 80% of your value before you get there, and it becomes a psychological game. Most people will sell before it gets there.
Right. So we're almost at the end of the program. Maybe we have one question. I have. Maybe you have a question.
Sure.
Yeah. So just say in the startup world, the success rate is so low. So you spend your money, your sweat equity, you work hard, you do everything, but sometimes a startup doesn't succeed. How do you overcome those psychological burdens, those psychological distress, and those lost opportunity, lost your time with your family, lost your money? How do you cope with those kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's a great question. So you have to go into it at the beginning knowing that probably will be the outcome. So mentally, kind of framing yourself that the overwhelming possibility is that your company's not going to make it. So if you have that mindset, it helps you a little bit. And I think you have to really orient yourself to all the valuable experiences you were able to garner from your time starting the company. It's invaluable. I mean, I've heard of folks who will go start companies and learn so much that they're able to secure a good VC job afterwards, because you learn more failing than you do doing well, right? When everything's going well, you may not have the same experience around how to pivot and how to work around challenges.
So, what is your next chapter in your life, Mary? You think you will retire soon? Or you do something? you will start your own fund, or what's the next?
Look, I mean, I just joined Boyd 6 months ago, so no other plans outside of this. I'm really enjoying this role. I report to our CEO, who's just a force of nature. This guy is, I don't know, probably twice as old as me and has like 3 times as much energy. So, really enjoying this. But I think, let's fast forward 10 years. I probably will eventually want to start a company. I just don't know when or what it'll be. But I feel like that's one of those itches that I just have to scratch, and I won't be happy if I don't.
Right. So, just say if any Nepalese or any person wants to get some suggestion, mentor, something. Do you have time, or you don't have time, or would you like to do something help?
I'll always make time to help people.
Always. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the reason we brought you here.
No, thank you for having me. And definitely, Jay, you got all my contact info. Feel free to send anyone my way.
Sure, sure. Thank you again for your time, and it was such awesome. Look like I got this VC like 10-minute, like actually 20-minute MBA. So,
Hardly. Yeah.
all
Well,
right, we'll talk to you
guys,
again. Thank you again. Thank you for your
good
time.
night. Bye.
Thank you.
All right, so Pooja, so we are at the end of the program. I just want to bring one of my uh, like NRA president of here in California. Um, he wants to share about the vaccination. Have you got your vaccination yet?
No, I haven't had chance.
Oh, okay. So let's call Surendra Malaji, and he wants to share about it because a lot of people are confused.
Yeah, that would be a very good
So
information.
let me call him quickly here. Okay. All right. It looks like he's not available. Can you try? So we are almost at the end of the program. So thank you, listeners, for tuning in our Radio Nepal USA 1310, and keep listening. And we have next weekend, and after that we are coming in the Shivratri, Mahashivratri.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Mahashivratri Radio Nepal has US program, a special program. We are trying to work out the logistic in Nepal. We will bring something special for our customer, and I have started like donation page. If our listeners can help out a little bit, $5, $10, whatever, it will be big help. To create a live program, it takes a lot of effort and money to do that. So I would really appreciate. And for studio for Radio Nepal USA, we are going to end our program, and keep listening, keep enjoying, and keep listening to Nepali USA. Are you
Sure.
are you going to say something to our
Yeah, sure. Thank you for आजको प्रोग्राम सुनिदिनु भएकोमा सबैजनालाई धेरै धेरै धन्यवाद छ। अर्को शनिबार फेरि पनि निकै नै रोचक कार्यक्रमहरू लिएर आउने नै छौँ। धेरै धेरै धन्यवाद। नमस्कार।
नमस्कार।